So you're gearing up for the AWS Solutions Architect exam, and you keep hearing about IAM. Everyone says it's foundational, it's the bedrock, it's critical. But what does that really mean for you? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on identity and access management. We're going to demystify it and give you the absolute core concepts you need to know, not just to check a box on the exam, but to really understand how to build secure, solid systems in the real world. Let's dive in.
Here's our game plan. First up, we'll get straight to the point. What even is IAM? Then, we'll meet the main players, the core identities, the who in the system. After that, we'll look at the rulebook, the policies that define exactly what they can do. Next, we'll get into the really clever part, the how, with IAM roles for secure delegation. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the golden rule of all cloud security, the principle of least privilege.
All right, let's start at square one. Before you can even think about securing a server or a database or anything else in AWS, you have to get your head around IAM. And really, don't think of it as just another feature. It's the absolute bedrock. It's the foundation of your entire security setup in the cloud.
I want you to think about it like this. Your AWS account? It's like a kingdom, and it's filled with all your valuable stuff, your applications, your customer data, everything. So the big question is, who gets the keys to that kingdom? Which doors can they open? And what are they allowed to do once they're inside? Well, IAM is the system that manages all of that. It's your digital gatekeeper.
Okay, so at its heart, IAM boils down to two concepts that you absolutely have to nail for the exam: authentication and authorization. Authentication is all about proving who you are. Think of it like showing your ID to a security guard. Authorization, on the other hand, is about what you can do once you're inside. IAM is the AWS service that handles both of these for you across your entire account.
And this brings us to something super important: the shared responsibility model. AWS takes care of the security of the cloud, the physical data centers, the networking, all that heavy lifting. But you are responsible for security in the cloud. And what's right there at the top of your list of responsibilities? IAM. Getting this right is 100% on you.
Okay, so we've established the what. We know IAM is the gatekeeper. Now let's meet the who. In this section, we're going to look at the different kinds of identities that IAM works with.
In the IAM world, there are really three main characters you have to know inside and out: the root user, your everyday IAM users, and IAM groups. And let me tell you, understanding the difference between these is a classic exam topic, so listen up.
All right, this is probably the most important distinction to burn into your brain. The root user is the account you create when you first sign up. It has, and I'm not exaggerating, God mode access. It can do literally anything, including deleting your entire account. That's why the absolute #1 best practice is to lock it away, use it for your initial setup, put multi-factor authentication on it, and then never touch it again for day-to-day work. Instead, for everything else, you create IAM users and you give each one only the specific permissions they need to do their job.
Now, could you imagine managing permissions for every single user one by one? In a big company, that would be a complete nightmare. And that's exactly where IAM Groups come in to save the day. A group is basically just a folder for your users. You attach the permissions to the group, and then every user you put in that group automatically gets those permissions. So you can have a developers group, a database admins group, a finance group. It's just so much cleaner and easier to manage.
Okay, so we have our who, we have our users and our groups, but how do we actually define the what they can do part? Well, that is all handled by things called IAM policies. Think of these as the official rulebook for your account.
Whoa, okay, I know this might look a little intimidating with all the brackets and quotes, but don't worry. It's just a simple text file written in a format called JSON. This is a real example of a policy that gives read-only access to S3. Now, for the exam, you're probably not going to have to write these from scratch, but you absolutely have to be able to read one and understand what it's doing.
Let's break it down. It's actually way simpler than it looks. Every policy is made of one or more statements, and each statement has 3 key ingredients. You've got the effect, which is just allow or deny. Simple enough. Then you have the action, which is the specific thing someone is trying to do, like S3 get object. And finally, the resource, which is the exact thing the action applies to, like a specific S3 bucket. Put it all together and you get a clear rule. Allow this action on this resource. That's it!
All right, time to level up. We're going to talk about a more advanced but incredibly powerful and important concept: IAM roles. If users are for people, you can think of roles as being for services or for granting access temporarily without ever sharing your secret keys.
The key thing to understand here is that a role isn't attached to a specific person. It's more like a hat that a trusted entity can wear. That entity could be an application running on a server, for example. When it puts on the hat or assumes the role, it gets temporary credentials that automatically expire. This is a massive game changer for security because it means you never ever have to hard-code permanent access keys into your code.
This diagram right here shows the most common use case you will see on the exam. So let's walk through it. First, an admin creates a role with permissions to read from an S3 bucket. Then, they launch a server, an EC2 instance, and attach that role to it. The application on the server then says, hey AWS, I'm wearing this hat, can I get my temporary credentials? AWS gives them back, and then the app uses those short-lived keys to securely access the S3 bucket. And the magic? No access keys were ever saved on that server. It's beautiful.
So just to recap, this table sums up the big use cases for roles. We just went through the EC2 application one, which is huge. But they're also essential for cross-account access, letting users in account A access things in account B, and for something called identity federation, which lets your employees sign in using their existing company login. Super useful stuff.
We've covered the who, the what, and the how. Now it's time to talk about the guiding philosophy, the principle that brings this all together and makes it truly secure. This is the golden rule of cloud security, the principle of least privilege.
The concept is actually really simple and elegant. It just means you grant only the absolute minimum permissions needed for a user or an application to do its job, nothing more. So if an app only needs to read from a database, you don't give it permission to delete the database. By doing this, you dramatically shrink your attack surface and you limit the damage that could be done if credentials ever get compromised.
So, how do you actually put this into practice? Well, you start everyone with 0 permissions, a totally blank slate, and you only add permissions as they're explicitly needed. You use awesome tools like the IAM Access Analyzer to hunt down and get rid of permissions that aren't even being used. You always apply permissions to groups and roles, not directly to users. And you make it a habit to regularly review and tighten these permissions.
And that's really the big idea I want to leave you with. Getting good at IAM and truly embracing the principle of least privilege, well, it isn't just about checking a security box. It's about building your entire cloud environment on a solid, secure, and trustworthy foundation.
And so, we end right back where we started. By mastering these concepts, users, groups, policies, and roles, all governed by the principle of least privilege, you now have the knowledge and the power to decide exactly who gets the keys to your cloud kingdom. And that, my friends, is a huge step toward crushing your exam and becoming a truly confident cloud architect.